against it. My question to the panel is such. Would you have voted for the transportation bill, the first transportation bill that was passed in the Commonwealth for more than 2 decades? That's why driving in Northern Virginia is sometimes worse than driving in a third world nation. It's also why some of our Fortune 500 companies are beginning to look and say, do we want to move to Northern Virginia if we get they have great schools, great quality of life, but if we can't move around and our employees can't move around, is it worth it? So these are very much economic concerns. So my question is, number one, would you have supported the transportation bill? And number two, what will you support in the next session, and where would you seek to get those revenues? Be specific in terms of taxes or other sources. I'll give you a minute each on this.
Well, I applaud the passage of the bill because, as you said, it has been in the making for 20, 30 years and been desperately needed. And I think it is an example that we should be proud of where Republicans and Democrats did come together. There were some very, very tough negotiations to get it passed. But I think it's a great accomplishment, and I think that Virginia should be proud that we finally got to this position. I also applaud Senator Evan and others who did realize that this hybrid tax that was on, or this tax on hybrid vehicles was fundamentally unfair. These vehicles, they don't use as much gas, but they're really taxed higher. And having that appeal was the right thing to do. I don't have a specific plan, if I'm delegate at this point sitting here, on how to change it. I do think we need to see how it is implemented and watch closely, and then see what happens and how it needs to be improved.
I would have supported the transportation package. I don't think it quite goes far enough, but what I really liked about it was the way it provided more autonomy and more funding, decision-making authority to the local and regional governments and organizations. I agree with David that I don't like the hybrid tax. I myself own a hybrid car and would have been directly affected by that tax. As for next steps, I think we need to look on a regional level at transit solutions and funding transit solutions that can achieve the goals I talked about earlier. Economic development, preserving affordable housing, creating open space. If you look at the history of I-66, when that was created, we had guarantees. We had a guaranteed bike path along that route, and that is used by hundreds of Arlington residents every day. We need to make sure if we develop transit and develop transportation that we're getting community benefits out of those agreements.
Yes, I would have voted for the comprehensive transportation package. I too have reservations on the hybrid and energy taxes. I think our Arlington delegation was right in not being happy with that. I think I would definitely be looking forward to working more with the county and the region specifically on increasing access for us specifically in this region along like Lee Highway, where we can increase the walkability score and other ways to make sure that traffic is moving along well there as that area of our county continues to grow, and of course along Columbia Pike. So those are the things that I certainly would be an advocate of. You know, it's probably going to take a minute to figure out what exactly is going on with the state budget to exactly pinpoint where I you know, look for money to fund those projects, but certainly looking into sort of state and local and regional partnerships for sure.
Yes, I would have supported it, and I'll tell you why, for 3 specific reasons. First of all, our party leadership supported it. Governor McAuliffe at the time, he supported it. Our residents in the 48th district, most of whom at least at some level rely on a car for their transportation needs, our community that will benefit from it. 2, it increases, like Paul said, the autonomy of our region. We hear a lot. Leadership Arlington, I feel like we spent a whole day talking about the Dillon Rule. And if we're going to talk about the Dillon Rule, we want more autonomy in our community, then when bills give you an opportunity to have more autonomy in your community, you should take them. The third thing, you know, one of the things we've talked about today and on the Blue Virginia questions and elsewhere is Richmond broken. Well, you can't claim Richmond is broken if you have a bipartisan bill that gets a lot of what you're looking for, and then you can't support it because it doesn't have everything. I think we do have a lot we still can do. Arterial roads, you know, for commuters like David and I who can't get to a metro station without getting to a bus or 2 buses, that's a problem. And I think revenue, everything has to be on the table, but at the same time, there's a lot of ideas and funding options out there already.
You know, sometimes context is everything, and in the face of the 20-year desert we had walked through on transportation funding, there's no question in my mind I would have supported this bill. Was it perfect? No. And I can understand the position of others who voted against it because it wasn't perfect. But sometimes the perfect can be the enemy of the good. And that would have been my view had I been voting on this last year. It does a lot of great things. I particularly like, as someone else said, I think, the regional tax, the regional dollars that were set up in the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, which, by the way, may well be able to help with a streetcar in Arlington. You never know. So I would have supported it, and of course agree with the general concept. We'd have to talk a lot more about it, about how to get cars off the road, which will help transportation in Northern Virginia and around the state. So I hope that answers the question.
I would have supported it as well. I think the bill was definitely needed. I think that we definitely need more mass transit options, including VRE, metro expansion, and buses. I think it's essential that Maryland, DC, and NOVA work together to reduce traffic congestion and also to increase reasonably priced mass transit options. I will definitely fight enrichment to ensure that tax dollars that are coming in from Virginia need to be invested in public transportation.
I agree with my colleagues on my fellow candidates that when you're trying to work across the aisle in Richmond, that we have to accept that there will be compromises and give and take, and that as long as we're moving transportation forward, that it would be advantageous to vote for that bill, and I would have voted for it. I think nobody benefits from there being no transportation bill. Protests, boycotts, walking out of negotiations are generally not good tactics. They actually have costs associated with them. In terms of what I would support, you know, the conversation needs to be about determining what is a fair share contribution and benefit for our transportation dollars. And I think additional conversations need to be had with the business sector, right? Because they have an interest in keeping the economy thriving and making sure that we reduce the dead time where we're stuck in traffic and we can't get places that we need to go.